What up, though? Thanks for inviting me into your kitchen. This audio recipe guide is for new bakers and seasoned bakers alike because they're not just recipes, they're a whole experience. They're you and I, side by side, baking together, step by step. I'm going to show you how easy and relaxing baking can really be. If you're already hip, welcome to the vibe. Now, pour yourself a drink, tie on an apron, and let's get started. We're about to make something delicious. I'm Bree, and I'd like to welcome you to your private baking session. First things first, let's go ahead and preheat our oven. For this recipe, you'll need to preheat it to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. This recipe is for the chewy cookie lovers, the ones who like their cookies flat, gooey in the center, and soft with every bite. If you're mixing by hand today, you're in luck. This recipe does not require any creaming. Just a bowl, a spoon, some patience, and a little bit of elbow grease. I promise, it's not a lot. While our oven is warming up, let's go ahead and start gathering the tools that we'll need. You'll need 2 bowls. One of them needs to be a large mixing bowl. The other, maybe not so big, but close. You'll need measuring cups and measuring spoons. We don't eyeball in this kitchen. We're exact. You'll need a rubber spatula or a wooden spoon, a cookie scoop or a regular tablespoon, a baking sheet, and either parchment paper or a silicone baking mat. Now, if you don't have parchment paper or a silicone baking mat, you can still make this recipe, but your cookies might get a little darker on the bottom. It's completely fine. We're going to keep an eye on them so that they don't burn. If you have a hand mixer or a stand mixer, feel free to use it. But if you're doing this by hand, again, don't worry. This dough was actually built for handmade love. Now that our oven is preheating and we got our tools all aligned, let's get into our ingredients. For this recipe, we're going to make sure that our butter is melted and cooled. We'll need 2 sticks of it. And we want to make sure that it's unsalted butter. We'll also need 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of dark brown sugar, tightly packed, 1 tablespoon of pure vanilla extract, 2 large eggs, 3 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a half teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now, the standard package for chocolate chips is 12 ounces, which is a cup and a half. You're more than welcome to only use 12 ounces, but for optimal melt in your mouth chocolate chip cookie, you want that full 2 cups. So I recommend getting 2 bags when you go shopping. The last thing is actually an optional secret ingredient, and that's going to be a teaspoon of espresso powder or instant coffee, if you have it. Now, if you don't, you are still about to make some bomb cookies. The espresso powder is just here to play up those chocolate flavor notes. You won't miss it, but you can definitely notice it when it's there. And I promise it tastes nothing like coffee. All right, let's get started building our dough. First, we're going to combine our white sugar, brown sugar, and melted butter in our large mixing bowl and add our vanilla extract. Now, we're not trying to whip air into this. We're just going to blend everything until it's silky and unified, smooth and glossy. Next, we're going to crack in our eggs one at a time, making sure that we gently mix after each addition. Now, your dough doesn't look like dough at all. It looks kind of loose and a little watery at this point. It's fine. Trust the recipe. I got you. Now, in our other bowl, we're going to just combine our dry ingredients. So that's the flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt, and espresso powder if you're using it. And we're just going to whisk that lightly to make sure it's well incorporated before we start adding it to our soupy, buttery, eggy sugar mix. If you're mixing by hand, you may want to do this in 2 or 3 parts. So add about 1/3 to a half of your dry mixture. Mix everything by hand until it's well incorporated, and then add the second half. Or add part 2 and repeat with part 3. Up to you. I just don't recommend adding all at once. We want to make sure that everything is well incorporated and we don't have little pockets of unmixed flour. And that can happen if you just dump everything and try to mix it by hand, especially when you're mixing it by hand. Now you should have a dough that's soft but sturdy, not sticky, not dry. Once it's fully mixed, it's time to add the chocolate chips. Again, I recommend adding the first cup, folding it, and then adding the second, but it's really not a big deal if you dump them all at once. Just try to make sure you get them all through the dough. Once the chocolate chips are in, the dough should feel thick and plush, like something you want to bite into, but you know better. Let's wait and bake it off. Next, we're going to get that cookie sheet and line it with our parchment paper or our silicone baking mat if we have it. If not, we're just going to scoop our cookie dough directly onto our cookie sheet. We're going to do 1 tablespoon for smaller cookies, making sure we don't have more than 12 to 15 well-spaced cookies on a standard cookie sheet. Or if you like those big, fat bakery-style cookies, you're going to do about 3 tablespoons of cookie dough. And you want to make sure that you don't exceed 6, maybe 8 large cookies, because these will spread. They won't spread a lot, but they will spread. And the last thing we want is 1 big cookie mass. We want individual cookies, not, just a sheet of cookie mass. All right, so once you got your cookie dough on a tray, we're going to go ahead and pop it into our preheated oven. If you use the small scoops, they are going to take about 10 to 12 minutes to cook. You want to start checking around the 8 to 10 minute mark though. And if you use the big cookies, the 3 tablespoon that I like to call the big daddies, then those are going to take about 20 minutes to cook. You want to start checking on those at the 15 to 18 minute mark. So go ahead and set a timer. You don't want to try to cook these all the way in the oven. Don't let them get too dark, because once they cool, you'll be left with bricks. You want golden edges and a soft center that doesn't look quite done. These are going to finish baking off of the heat when you take them out the oven. If you overbake or underbake the first dozen, don't worry. Just adjust your bake time on the next round, because this recipe yields about 5 dozen standard cookies. When you do take the cookies out, make sure you let them rest on the pan for about 5 minutes. This is going to complete the cooking process. Then move them over to a cooling rack for the rest of the 10 minutes. Or you can nibble on them at this point. They'll firm up just enough to hold together, and that chew ain't going nowhere. And that's it. You did it. Soft, chewy cookies with a gooey center and a slight crisp at the edge. Save one for later or eat them all now. Bree don't judge. I hope you had fun. I had a blast. Until next time, this was a private session with Bree. Stay sweet.